In today's show, we're here live on the old YouTube answering questions. Adam King's going to be here as well. So, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me as always on Twitter at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Well, we've got someone here to join us for the first mailbag show of the season. It is a king who is not falling apart at the seams like old mate Viserys. It is Adam King. Welcome.
Morning, Josh. You're nice and early for us, but
It is.
we're used to this, I think.
Yeah, mate. I've been up for a good hour or so, getting ready for the day. We're here for the next 30 minutes to answer questions that you blokes might have. Sitting here in the YouTube chat function. So, Kingy, you can see the screen. I'm going to drop those questions up on the screen. There's going to be a lot of them. There are going to be a few of them that I'm sure are duplicates. So we'll try not to do those ones. Hamburglar, should Terry Rozier be sold high before LaMelo comes back? My immediate answer is no. Like, no one's going to give you actual current Terry Rozier price, and the price that people would value him at when LaMelo comes back will be lower than what it actually is. So just hold it and love it.
Yeah, hold him. I mean, most people drafted him with LaMelo playing, so I think anything you get now is a bonus. But people understand LaMelo could be back in a week, so
Yeah, let's hope so.
yeah. So no, I'd just be holding him.
All right, let's. Leonardo Guevara Jr. says this. Let's get this question out of the way. If you ask it later, I'm not going to answer it. Is Hartenstein a must-roster player? Now, obviously, yesterday, Kingy played 40 minutes. Yes, Mitch Robinson fouled out in like 13 minutes. But as I've been saying, since the moment Hartenstein signed, he is a better player than Mitchell Robinson. We've just got to wait for old mate Tom Thibodeau to realise that. Now, this does not indicate that Tom Thibodeau has realised that. It indicates that, Hartenstein played and played well. But this is a man who persisted with Alfred Payton as a starting point guard for 82 games. Despite every available evidence, every person screaming in his ear that, hey, this probably isn't it. And then he realised it in the playoffs. So, this is not an indication that it's going to be a minute split. This is not an indication that Hartenstein's going to play more minutes than Mitch Robinson. It's none of those things, but we try and bet on talent. And we saw it. We couldn't have asked for a better situation where Hartenstein gets extended run and plays really well. So to me, yes, he is a must grab. Is he a must hold in 2 weeks if he's playing 17 minutes? Probably not, but who cares? I think you've got to grab him now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I drafted him in a few spots and wasn't expecting 40 minutes, but I think we sort of expect Mitch Robinson to be in foul trouble, not all the time. He's better than he used to be, but as you've said, as I've said, Hartenstein is probably the better player anyway. So let's hope that Tibbs figures that out. I don't have much confidence in that, but yeah, he certainly needs to be added. I think someone in the Locked On Fantasy Bowl league that I'm in actually grabbed him last night for $51. So
that's a lot of money.
I think I bid $4 on him to try and get him.
That's a good. I need to check because I had a couple of bids in there as well. I need to see what my how my bids went in. I'll do that in a second. But this does not mean drop Mitchell Robinson. Like, that's not what this means, because again, we're still assuming that Mitchell Robinson starts and plays his 20 odd minutes. We just think that Hartenstein might not play 15 or 16. He might play 21 or 22 with upside to do more. It is another common question. Cameron Castaneda, how do we feel about Vassell still? I feel really bloody good. Right? Do I expect him to be an 18% shooter with 60% from the line? Well, if you do, then I think there's something wrong. But he had 30% usage. He played 29 minutes in a blowout. Absolutely, this is the biggest buy low you'll ever see in your life. It's not, because you see bigger ones. But someone's going to drop him, much like you're considering here, Cameron. Maybe you're not. But don't panic. There's absolutely no reason to panic with this. There'll be shit nights. And there'll be nights where he shoots 70% on and gets 30 points in 30 minutes. That'll happen. But the usage and the minutes and the role is what you should be excited about.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried. He will be one of those guys that could be dropped, just because he's a little bit unproven. But yeah, look, I mean, he had 4 assists, he had a steal, he just missed his shots. If he hits his shots, then that's a perfect line. So, yeah, I'm not panicking at all.
The other things you got to look at, don't look at, like someone was like, man, Patrick Beverley, what a shit stream that was. He had 2 points. Yeah, but he had 4 steals and 2 blocks. So it's always about looking at Vassell, man, he killed me in field goal percentage. Yeah, but he took the shots. And not one person is going to be an 18% shooter over the course of the season. I'm telling you, if he is, he'll be cut. Like, it's not going to happen. So what you're looking for is not the result, it's the process. It's how they got there. And that's one of the most important things in making these decisions. Jackie Wallace says, can we drop a buy low on Karl-Anthony Towns? Well, I was down on Towns this season. Yesterday's game solidified that for me. It doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong, but it showed, okay, there was my worries were. But what do you mean a buy low? Like, I wouldn't say, hey, me sending a second round player for Towns is a buy low, because I valued Towns in that early second round area anyway. And I doubt someone who invested in Towns at pick 6 is going to be panicking enough to trade him for a 4th round guy. So by all means, try it. You got no chance of it happening though.
No, I mean, give it a crack. You never know. But yeah, look, I mean, Towns was a bit disappointing yesterday, obviously, but he's got to settle into this role. I mean, he's been a starting centre since day one. So he's never played alongside someone like Gobert, and yeah, I think he's going to need a few games to warm into this. So,
well, let's have a look actually on the Yahoo trade market to see if anyone has actually done anything stupid with Karl-Anthony Towns and trades. Apparently, there's been 4 trades in the last 24 hours of Towns, and one of them was for Bradley Beal. So maybe there's something. The other one was for Gobert, with Towns at a 1st round pick for Gobert and a 2nd round pick. Okay, so there is a little bit of value shaved off Towns there. Not necessarily much, but the trades that have gone down, there's something a little bit going on there. So that is marginally interesting. Okay. Is it worth dropping Oubre for the back-to-back? Like, I don't even know why I highlighted that question. I'm not really sure what to make of that. He's a starter. The minutes are fine. I don't think he's a high upside player, but if there's something else you want to get in there to get more games, I'm not really tied to Oubre that strongly. All right, here's another interesting question that I just missed out. Nate Ford, we're going to get this one. What are your thoughts on Eason? Kind of discouraging. He only got 15 minutes with Tate out. Would you drop him for Bojan? This is 100% predicted. I told you a million times. Like, this is a guy who was the 3rd string small forward in training camp. Every game in preseason was because either Tate was out, or Gordon was out, or Jabari was out. And even though Tate was out, they played KJ Martin over him. Steven Silas makes bad decisions consistently. And if you drafted Tari Eason, you didn't do it for a 20 and 10 on opening night, surely. Surely that's not what you did. You did it because you hope at some point the rationale of Steven Silas, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later, maybe it's in a month. Like, you can't wait 3 months for it, but maybe it's in a month, maybe it's in 3 weeks. Because, hey, he's actually better than Tate and better than Martin, and he should get 24 minutes a night. So after one game where he gets 15 minutes, while it's discouraging, it should have absolutely been in your, this is going to happen. Like, I expect this to happen. That's how I entered the day anyway, Adam.
Yeah, I was much the same. I mean, I've made it pretty clear I drafted him in a lot of leagues, and I would have loved a 20 and 10 night, but I was planning on 15 to 20 minutes. It's not ideal, but he's on my bench in most leagues. I'm not. He wasn't active, didn't matter, and fingers crossed. Although, based on them starting Bruno Fernando, I wouldn't have confidence that Steven Silas will make the right decision. But let's hope that he does at some point in the near future.
DJ says, am I a believer in Bruno Fernando? No, I'm not. Look, and most NBA teams aren't either, because he's been around the block a million times. He was literally on a 2-way contract last week, and the Rockets, because they are a team with the worst coach, or if not the worst coach, close to the worst coach in the NBA, decided to start him. So DJ says he's got him available in a 14-team NICAT league. The other options are Jalen Duren or Nick Richards. I take Jalen Duren over him every day of the week a million times. Even though Dwayne Casey is as big of a knucklehead as what Silas can be in terms of rotations, I know one of those guys has got upside, and I know the other one's Bruno Fernando. So I would much rather take Duren there. Nick Richards, I'd probably take Fernando just because there is the starting vote. But what Bruno did yesterday, he had 2 blocks in about 4 minutes. So nothing else after that. And then he had 7 assists, which, again, I'm not joking. He might have totaled 30 assists in his entire NBA career. So I wouldn't look at 7 assists as being anything. I thought he was okay out there, but I wouldn't be looking at him, man, we've got to go grab Bruno. Like, this happened. It's like last year, King, oh, man, we've got to go grab Bielitsa. Like, this stuff happens so often. Jordan Nwora, man, what an ad. Grayson Allen, he dominated opening night. Chris Duarte, woo, here we go. And then they do nothing. So Duran easily longer term view there over Fernando.
Yes, and I'm very surprised Duran is still available actually in any leagues after yesterday, especially a 14-team league. He should have been drafted in a 14-team league.
Yeah, he's drafted in all of my 12s, maybe except one. I think that he wasn't drafted in, but he needed to be that last round sort of pick. We're going to get back with more questions in just a second. Before we do that, though, it's betonline.net is your number one source for all of your football and basketball betting needs. In fact, they've updated the copy that says the start of the new basketball season. They're on top of things. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth analysis on every game, including the 2 games that are on today where the Clippers are still only 5.5-point favorites over the Lakers. Maybe that's a first half line. I don't know. But that is one that is available, and you can go and have a look at that. The Sixers are 4-point favorites against the Bucks as well, and it's not just the basketball. It's Major League Baseball playoffs. It's NHL. It's MMA. It's boxing. It's golf. It's live betting, and it's up-to-the-minute scores of everything that you would want to see. So head to that website. It's betonline.net, or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. Kingy, let's go back. Grab another question in here. Sinwu Lee asks, Nick Richards or Walker Kessler, who has more upside this year? To me, it's Kessler. You?
Kessler.
Yep. We've got this news coming out today. The bearded Hefner says, is Kawhi coming off the bench to start the season? Fake news? I don't know. I would put this is the stuff that annoys me about NBA coaches and all that sort of stuff. We saw the preseason. Kawhi started in the preseason game. So why now, for chemistry and to ease him back in, we're playing off the bench? I'd do it in the fucking preseason. Like, what's the difference? Like, how does that... Why does that make... There's literally no... Coaches have this... Remember a few years ago, I don't know if you remember, King, Alvin Gentry was like, I'm going to bring Drew Holiday off the bench so Langston Galloway could start because it's just much easier for me to keep Drew Holiday's minutes under control or keep an eye on them. And it's also, I probably can give him more minutes when he comes off the bench. Like, coaches lie and confuse themselves and tie themselves into rotational knots all the time. The easiest thing is to do is start Kawhi out there and let him play. Like, I don't know, this is not rocket science yet. They're trying to make it into some big secret.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
It could very easily happen. Like, it might happen.
Oh, it might, and that's even more ridiculous that they think they have to bring him off the bench to manage his minutes. Just if you want to manage his minutes, just do it as a starter. Just because you start him doesn't mean you have to play him 34 minutes.
Yep.
And you're playing the Lakers, so I mean, there's a chance that he might not need to play in the final quarter anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, look, it could happen. It wouldn't surprise me, and it doesn't really impact. I've seen some questions on Twitter floating around today about does it impact his upside, his value? I don't think so, but yeah, if they do it, it's baffling. I mean, he's their best player. Why would you bring him off the bench?
Abol says, what is happening with Olynyk? That's a very broad question, but really easy for you. He had 5 fouls in 14 minutes yesterday. Vanderbilt fouled out in like 18 minutes. I was pretty big on grabbing Olynyk at the end of drafts with the understanding that by the time we hit January, he might be useless, right? And we understand that. But yesterday's game doesn't tell me that he's useless right now. He's still going to continue. They were really good yesterday, the Jazz. He's still really useful for his ability to space and to provide openings for guys like Conley and Clarkson and Sexton and Beasley and all these sort of guys. He will play not 30 minutes. He might play 22 or 23 minutes, and he won't get 5 fouls in 14 minutes on most nights. Kessler was still really good in there, but don't be looking at this. Like, the guy who really benefited from Olynyk fouling was Rudy Gay, because Vanderbilt was functionally their center and Kessler played there, and then Gay played more minutes because Olynyk was in foul trouble. So if you do have Olynyk, I get it. There might be let's put a hypothetical out there, King. Like, if you've got Olynyk and Hartenstein's there, or Duran's there, or Mathurin's there, or Aldama's there, like, to me, they're all relatively close, but I guess it depends on if you want production now, which I think Olynyk gives you a little bit more early, but those other guys like Mathurin and Duran, the value of those guys rises later on.
Yeah, I think it depends. If you took Olynyk with your last pick, then you were expecting something like this. And as you said, he was in foul trouble. Somehow it was a blowout. I'm not worried. I've got him in a couple of spots. I didn't drop him at all. So
Loading says, Tyronn Lue is a good coach. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He is a good coach, but every single playoff series that he's in, he seems to go down 2-0 because he makes poor decisions and then makes the correct adjustment. So I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt of his initial decision. He generally figures out his mistakes and fixes them, but he doesn't make the first right, correct choice every time. He's a master of admitting his mistakes and fixing them, and that is a great quality, but he makes plenty of them and then adjusts to them. So we'll see how he does with this one. All right, I know you're taking the piss, Labo beat, so I'm not going to do that one. MR says Adam sounds way more Aussie than Josh. That's because I'm using my fake accent. I'm not using my real Aussie accent. I can really. I better not, because I won't even understand myself. I better not go full Aussie with this one. All right, here's a question that's going to come up a lot. Manny Manoli, should I drop Kyle Lowry in points leagues? No, you should not. Now, there is a real possibility that Kyle Lowry at age 36 is done. Like there's a possibility Chris Paul is done at age 37. These things happen to smaller guards, and you never know when they're going to happen. But I'm not doing it after one game. Kingy.
No, I mean, I didn't draft him anywhere, so it's not a problem that I'm faced with.
I did, but yeah, I'd pick 100.
I'd pick 100, yeah, God. No, look, it's one game. He was pretty bad, but you could look at Chris Paul, as you said, and say he was bad yesterday.
They might be both bad moving forward. We don't know.
No, we don't. I mean, I guess Lowry was pretty bad to end last season, but he had a lot going on off the court as well. So yeah, I don't sort of weigh that into my decision at all. I'd just be holding him and see what happens. Give him a couple of weeks. He's proven he's done enough throughout his career to sort of give him the benefit of the doubt.
Agree. Someone asked me a question about John Isaac, and I'm not going to be referencing that guy until I actually see him out on the court. Yeah, Rise Above says you can't panic off of one regular season game. Absolutely 100% accurate. David Lee, what are my thoughts on Kyrie's poor day one performance? That's literally what I just said. You can't panic. Who cares? Like, he had a poor shooting night. I could not give a shit, honestly. Like, if you're getting up and down, and I think part of this is why I stopped doing a lot of the DFS stuff, is that I can't get hyper-focused on one day's performance and then be out, not that I ever did this, but out there rage tweeting athletes, what are you doing on this one day? Like, that's not how the NBA works. It's like an accumulation thing. It's a move forward sort of thing. So, like, it's just simmer down a little bit with that sort of stuff. He had a bad game. Like, it's not anything that's worrying me really at this point. Kingy, let's go through. Don't ask me a question that says thoughts, because I can give you lots of thoughts, but they aren't probably what you want to hear. Is Nick Claxton a must roster in an 8-team league? I would say absolutely not. In an 8-team league, you're only probably rostering 100 people. Claxton's probably the worst player in a roster. Therefore, the amount of value on your waiver wire, Kingy, is going to be extreme.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's probably borderline if you do need blocks and rebounds. He was pretty good yesterday, I thought, in 25 minutes. Did what we needed him to do. But, in an 8-team league, I think he's going to be one of those guys that's probably on and off of rosters throughout the season.
Thomas says, Josh, who do you think hates you more, Raptor fans or Kai Sotto fans? I don't think Kai Sotto fans hate me anymore because they didn't actually make any sort of peep on my channel after I said I don't think he's an NBA player, and they told me he's probably better than Chet and he'll go number one. None of them actually came back to apologize, so I'm reckoning they maybe accept that I might have been right there. So it's probably Raptor fans, but we all have our little things. Will Fultz have a decent role when he returns from injury? I don't know. Maybe. Possibly. Who knows? I thought Jalen Suggs was great yesterday, King. He's a guy that we all were pretty hopeful on a nice second season. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was yesterday. There's still Fultz and Anthony and Suggs, but they can handle most of those 96 backcourt minutes between the three of them, I think.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I grabbed Fultz with my last pick in a couple of leagues.
Same.
Threw him straight in my IR spot. Because, I mean, he had a strong end to last season, and I think they're going to utilise him. But, yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear yesterday that they're happy to let one of about 5 players run the point. So, yeah, look, I think he'll have a role, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Here's one, and I think it ties into a bigger fantasy discussion. Head Huncho says, is DeAndre Hunter a must-roster player? Because the number one thing, King, that people look at in a box score is the first column, and it's points. And DeAndre Hunter scored 22 of them, and you go, ooh, DeAndre Hunter, I know that name. He was a high pick, and he just signed a big contract, and he scored 22 points. But my problem has always been with DeAndre Hunter. What the hell else is he doing? 3 rebounds, like that's putrid. 1 assist, 1 steal, and he shot that on 70% or 68% or something. So when that number comes down, and that's at 40% or 45%, and he gives you 12, 3 and 1, you look at it and go, like, that's not exciting at all. And no one shoots 68% on a continual basis. That just doesn't happen. So is he worth a roster spot? Yeah, by all means. Like, that's fine. The role is there, but I've also seen him for 3 years have the role and produce value commensurate with a 12-team league player for about 2 weeks during that time because he got offers nothing else outside of that scoring. And if the scoring's not coming on absolutely elite, unsustainable efficiency, I don't know what else he does.
Yeah, I didn't go and add him. I think he was drafted in a couple of leagues, but he's one of these players that I think his real life value actually outweighs his fantasy value, because he is actually a fairly good defender, a wing defender, but he just that doesn't translate.
I'm just going back to that Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl question we had earlier about who I added. I was able to get Ayo Dosunmu in that league for $8 because I had an injured player. I tried to get Aldama and someone outbid me for $12 on him. So they get someone also spent $4 on Reggie Jackson, which is a curious addition in that league. So I was able to get Ayo. There you go. That was my addition. I don't know how Santi wasn't drafted in that league. I think he was, and someone dropped him the day before the season started, which is pretty big L from whoever did that. Yeah. What other questions have we got here? Carter Al, are we expecting Jabari, I assume Smith Jr. and not Parker in whatever rec league he's playing in, Jabari Smith to continue to shoot as much as he did last night? He might be in store for some monstrous lines. If so, I don't know the expect that level of shooting from him, but he's going to be featured. He's going to get minutes. He's going to be pretty good, I think. And I think you have to look. That was my major worry with him, Kingy, is like, what's the usage going to look like? We knew there'd be some field goal percentage issues, but I would say maybe tone it down a little bit from last night. But hey, it was pretty encouraging.
Yeah, I think that sort of aspect, the offensive role, was actually the biggest question I had. I think he'll get rebounds, he'll get defensive stats, he'll hit threes, he'll play big minutes. So yeah, look, I mean, that was very encouraging last night. And yeah, if you drafted him, it's sort of all hands on deck, and let's see what happens in the next few games.
High Ground says, any renewed thought on how many rookies will finish top 100 this season? Look, I'm not really changing my mind massively on this. I still had the three guys there, Murray, Banchero, and Smith. Duran has a chance at it. Kessler has an outside chance at it. Mathurin maybe has a chance at it. Look, he was pretty good yesterday, but this is something I tweeted out and I didn't mention on the podcast. Both him and Ivy had big games. And we saw this from a wing player in Duarte last season, opening night, 27.6 threes in his first game. And then NBA teams said, rookies, I don't think so. Like, we're not going to let you do this. And I wonder if that happens to Ivy and Mathurin, because teams, their game plans can be pretty limited in the regular season, and especially players they don't know. They're not highly scouting college tape to go, well, how are we going to stop Benedict Mathurin coming off the bench? So if he starts to do it a little bit, then teams might say, let's put this guy in his place, and we'll see how he adjusts to that. Because my issue with Mathurin and even Ivy has been, if they're inefficient scorers, I'm not sure what else is coming, and that might reduce their value. So I'm not ready to anoint all of these guys as top 100 guys moving forward. It'll be interesting to see how they cope with what I believe will be an increased focus on them in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think, I have those three as well. I think if Jalen Duran started, he would have a chance. But I have a feeling, and I heard on your show yesterday, that you're probably going to be making a trip over to Detroit because I think Bagley will be starting.
Seriously, seriously.
So yeah, we'll see what happens in a month or whatever when Bagley's back. But,
if that dipshit watched that game yesterday and went, I'm going to put no defense, no shooting, no passing Marvin Bagley in ahead of a guy who's 19 years of age and actually works really well with our group, and Troy Weaver doesn't fire him, they both can lick my gooch. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Metaphorically, of course. It would be one of the more stupid decisions I've ever heard or ever seen from a coaching perspective. Like, how do you justify it? I've seen Marvin Bagley play, and I think they have as well.
Well, you would hope they have. Yeah, look, I totally agree, but it really wouldn't surprise me. Bagley shouldn't have. He was named the starter, which that was surprising to begin with. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I thought the Pistons actually looked really good yesterday.
Apart from I hope you didn't watch the first quarter because they were atrocious.
They were. That was actually the game. I watched quite a lot of that game just because it had a lot of young guys. And I thought Isaiah Stewart actually looked the best I've seen him in terms of his role. It looks like they've figured out. And I mean, they've got some good young guards now, and they're playing quick. So that fits.
I thought was interesting in that game, not to diverge too much from the questions here, is that Cade I didn't think played his best, but still had 18 and 10, right? And when a lot of focus is coming in on him, and the fact that he opened things up for guys like Ivy and for Stewart and for Duran and for Boyan, I thought he was really, really good, despite shooting like sub 40%, and that's a massively encouraging sign for me as well.
Yeah, and I agree. It wasn't his best game, but he found a way to rack up stats, and that's what good players do.
Sam, you've just triggered me with this question, so I'm going to answer it. He says, why is Sexton coming off the bench? He's not particularly good. And the reason, Tony Jones, Jazz beat reporter, he said, someone said, why is this ridiculous? Why is Sexton coming off the bench? He said, well, he hasn't been in their best 5 players. And he's not in their best 5 players, and he hasn't shown that he's in their best 5 players, so he's not going to play like he's one of their best 5 players. And Tony's there at practices, and he talks to the coaches. So I'm going to take that as what's actually true. And again, Colin Sexton's a guy that in the past has scored, but I don't think he's a winning player. And if they think that Jordan Clarkson and Malik Beasley can help them more, go for it. Like, Sexton is not that good. And I think I just thought they would start him. They paid him and it was a piece of the Mitchell trade. But if he got there and Will Hardy went, I'm not sure about this. Like, there's still don't drop Sexton or anything like that. But this is not a massive surprise that he's not good enough. And the other thing is, are they showcasing Conley for a trade? Like my guy Sam, everyone knows what I'm going to say here. Do you think that other GMs have never seen Mike Conley before? Who's this young spry man, number 11 for the Jazz? Michael Conley Senior, is it? Michael Conley? He looks like a bit of a goer. I wonder if he'll trade for me. Everyone knows who Mike Conley is. Showcasing for a trade doesn't exist. You know what they're showcasing to do? To win some games. Sorry, Sam, I don't mean to put you on blast, but they're playing him because he's their best player, and they, despite the organizational philosophy, they want to win games. Will Hardy wants to win games. The players want to win games, and Mike Conley's actually really good. So they're not going to sit him down. They're not going to bench him because he's really good. And if teams want to trade for him, and if they don't, he's a legendary teammate, great community guy, and the Jazz love him. So we'll see if he ends up going or not. But showcasing is a fallacy. It's something that the media loves bringing up, and it's just garbage. It's absolute garbage.
Yeah, I think if showcasing was a thing, then Eric Gordon has been showcased for 8 years. So,
thank you very much. And again, if any GM needs to, and any GM not named Doc Rivers when he was GM needs to see a player put up a big game against their team to trade for him, then what are they in that job for? That shouldn't be the case. It's like almost there was a lot of talk about it when the Victor Wembanyama Scoot Henderson game was like, oh man, GMs after they saw this game, they're gonna be there wanting to get these draft picks. Like any GM or scouting department who knew what they were doing, knew about these guys if I knew about them for at least 2 years, then I'm pretty sure NBA scouting departments knew about how good and I've been hearing about Victor since he was about 13. I knew he was going to be this like level of prospect coming through. So I'm pretty sure the NBA teams are a step ahead of me on that one. We might be able to get 1 or 2 more questions in here. Beteran Gungor says, is Malik Beasley must roster? I couldn't say that, no.
No, I think I've got him in a deeper league possibly, and I really just need some points. But yeah, I don't think he's must roster.
I think the thing which is important to note there is the term must roster. Like, can you have him on your roster? Yeah, who cares? Like, sure, no worries, whatever. Do I have to make sure that he's not sitting on the wire? Like, no. He's a points and threes guy who's still coming off the bench and might score 15 points with 5 threes, might score 9 points on 15 shots with 2 threes. Like, it's not imperative that you have him. And speaking of imperative, Ben Edry says, how long do you think Aldama will have value? Well, at least until Jaren comes back. And I posited this yesterday, Kingy. I want your opinion on it. Do you think there is a chance that they could start Aldama and Jackson together at some point and bring Adams off the bench? Or Aldama pushes Brandon Clark's value way down and plays a lot of those bench minutes? He's really good.
Yeah, look, it's possible. I really like Brandon Clark, so I'm disappointed with how he's played and his role. But yeah, look, Aldama gives them that floor spacing that they need. If they were to play him and Jaren Jackson alongside each other, they can really spread the floor, which opens it up for Jar to get to the basket a bit more. Right. Look, I mean, Aldama is going to have value, as you said, till Jaren Jackson is back, but I wouldn't then just be dropping him. As soon as we get word Jackson is back, don't drop Aldama, because I think, there is a chance Clark is the guy that's squeezed out.
Yeah, that is possible. Would you drop Brandon Clark then?
Right now?
I guess you don't just drop someone. It depends. Like if Aldama was available, if Mathurin, Adurin was available, would you be like, ooh, Clark's got to go to add those guys?
Aldama, yes. Duran, Possibly, I don't know. I'm trying to give Clark a bit of time just before, because he did close the game, so he was on the floor at the end,
and he had foul trouble too.
Yeah, so I don't think he's going to. I was expecting sort of mid-20s minutes, like 25, 24. So we'll see.
They couldn't really play him with Adams though. That's part of the problem. Is that they're viewing Clark at this point as basically exclusively a center. So the Jackson absence doesn't really matter that much.
No.
And Jackson plays some center that when he comes back, it probably hurts a little bit more because the spacing of Adams and Clark together, they hate it. And they're obviously prioritizing that spacing, which makes me pretty worried. Now, I just think, given the fact that he's not getting 25 or 26 a night and the potential for that to drop even further later on, that the upside for Clark, realistically, he's probably a worse or second worst player. That means he's got to be up on the chopping block.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this. I actually wasn't too excited when Jackson went down, because I think we saw last season that Jackson and Clark can play together, and they played well together.
Mm-hmm.
But that, because you can play Clark at the center and Jackson at the 4, but you can't do that with Adams. So, yeah, I can. I mean, as we've said, Aldama could have value, but I could see a situation where Jackson comes back and Clark actually gets better in terms of, or his role actually increases if they decide to just go with Jaren Jackson at the center a bit more. But Adams is a really nice fit on that team. I know he doesn't rack up a lot of stats, but
last question, Kingy. Shinobi says, is Harrison Barnes a drop? I wouldn't have drafted him personally, because what he did yesterday was exactly why I didn't want to draft him. No upside. And this is without Keegan Murray. So when we're trying to cycle through the let's hit the waiver wire gold on the Aldamas, Durans, Matherins, the Sumus, throw whatever name you want in there, Ivy, whoever it is, like Barnes is gone. Like there's no upside in him. It's like having Dorian Finney-Smith or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or one of those guys, or Aaron Gordon, or even like Royce O'Neal, who went off yesterday, but we don't expect that. Like these are the guys that the production's solid, and if you hit fantasy playoffs, you might want that. But I don't need it now. Like I'd rather take a flyer, because Harrison Barnes is never going to be top 70. Like, give me someone who might be. So, yeah, look, see you later. If there's someone out there that you want to add.
Yeah, I didn't draft him either. And I, when I did my recap yesterday, I did almost put in there that, I mean, you can drop him. He'll be better than that. Like
yes, he will.
15, 16 a game. But as you said, he does nothing else other than maybe some rebounds. So, yeah, I wouldn't be prioritizing him at all.
You definitely can do better than that, but I also don't care that much. But again, when people hear my opinion, it's like when people asked me about Mo Bamba yesterday. I didn't draft him because I didn't think he was valuable. So if you're going to ask me, hey, should I have him? Like my answer is going to be no, you shouldn't have to begin with. So get rid of him straight now. But you obviously thought different to me to have him to begin with. So use that information to how you value him moving forward. Because again, I wouldn't have picked him. So I would have no hesitation moving. But you obviously thought something way different to me to have picked him at a decent spot. So maybe you want to hold on and wait till see where that goes. Kingy, that will that'll do it for us in this mailbag show. Tell people what you've got going on and where they can find you if they want to hear more from you and your mustache.
Yep, at Adam King 91 on Twitter. We've got we'll probably have an episode of the Clutch Time podcast coming out this afternoon potentially, and then got a few things going on in the background as well, and Movember coming up. So hoping we can get a few people together to grow some nice mows. Yeah,
I'm going to be doing that with Kingy and a bunch of other fantasy guys, hopefully. So hopefully you guys can donate to help men's health as I grow out this mustache and get it excited. Kingy, thanks for jumping on. And that, guys, will do it for us today. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey. And if you're on YouTube, do me a favor and thumb it up. Leave your comments down below, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.